Good morning, good afternoon, and thanks for attending the Oracle Integration webinar. Thanks for joining our quarterly update webcasts. I'm Jürgen Kress, part of the product management team and your host today. In case you missed one of your webcasts, on-demand recordings are available via Oracle Video Hub, including presentation for download. In today's presentation, the product management team and A-team will present Oracle Integration Update and discuss CX integration best practices. Hi, Ravi, thanks for attending.
Hi, Jürgen. How are you doing? Glad to be here.
Welcome to our webcast. And Juan Carlos from Spain. Juan, thanks for attending.
Thank you, Jürgen. How are you guys? Nice to have you here.
Thank you. And from the A-team, Epi Kumar. Epi from the US. Good morning.
Good afternoon, Jürgen. Thank you for having me today.
And Bala from the A-team. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Happy to share the information.
Thanks for presenting today. Objective of the call is to give you an update on Oracle Integration Cloud. SaaS solutions like HCM, CX, and ERP Cloud need to be integrated and customized. Pre-built adapters accelerate your SaaS implementation and reduce your project risk. Juan Carlos prepared a new integration demo, and Ape and Bala will present best practices and integration patterns to connect CX. Quick housekeeping. Today's presentation is live and the presentation is being recorded. Please feel free to post your questions via the conference Q&A tool in the Zoom console. At the end of the webcast, we will answer them. Slides and the on-demand webcast will be posted at the Oracle Video Hub. We will post announcements and links in the conference chat. Please complete the online survey at the end of the webinar. As we will present product roadmap information, please pay attention to Oracle's safe harbor statement. Please do tweet and blog about products and services which are available today. In today's agenda, followed by the quick announcements, Ravi will highlight the Oracle Integration February release. Juan Carlos prepared a new integration demo, including machine learning capabilities. Ape and Bala will discuss best practices, including integration and extension patterns, security, and connectivity. We will wrap up the session with a live Q&A. So let's get started. Nomination for the Oracle Excellence Awards 2022 is open. It's your opportunity to get recognized. Please submit your nomination by April 1st. As a customer, you can nominate your Oracle integration success in the application modernization or business transformation category. You can also nominate yourself as the CIO or Architect of the Year. Nomination is also open for system integrator partners and for ISV partners. Some tips for the submission. Emphasis on the challenges you solved in the project and the approach to achieve those results and business value. Highlight the innovation that you use to drive it with Oracle Digital Assistant and integration. And of course, metrics matter and often decide who you win. Thanks to all our customers and partners, Oracle was named once again a leader in the Gartner Magic Quadrant, the 5th time in a row. We would like to encourage you, if you have implemented successful Oracle integration, please submit a Gartner Peer Insight report. If you want to try Oracle Integration Cloud, it's part of the free cloud program. You can build, test, and deploy Oracle integrations and connect your applications. The trial is valid for 30 days. Use the documentation and training material to become an integration expert. Based on your role as a business user, developer, admin, we offer Get Started training materials, including introduction, basic concept for developers, and business patterns. Who are the integration experts that support your customer project? System integrators like Accenture implement 8 out of the top 10 projects. Choose a certified partner with OIC references to replicate your success. At Partner Finder, you can search for certified partners by competencies and region. At Cloud Marketplace, you can search for applications based on the Oracle Cloud Platform. For example, Avantco offers third-party integration adapters for SAP or Amazon, or pre-built recipes from Activate or Busware. Questions, need support? Collaborate at Oracle Cloud Customer Connect. In the discussion forums, you can share your knowledge, engage with industry experts, and network with peers. You can submit innovation and earn personal badges. The next webinar in our Oracle Integration Customer Success Webcast series will take place April 20th. Accenture will present together with the customer Discover Financial Solutions a successful ERP cloud integration. Please join us April 20th. Today's presentation is recorded and the slides will be published at Oracle Video Hub. For more information and regular updates, please subscribe to the Oracle Integration newsletter. The quarterly updates from the product management team include the latest product information, events, success stories, white papers, and trainings. With this short introduction, I would like to hand over to Ravi. Ravi, over to you.
Thank you, Jürgen, for that introduction. Hi, everyone. This is Ravi Pinto. I'm part of the OIC product management team. And I'm excited to share today with you the February release that we've done just last month, and it's live now. Just to give you a quick background on how do we do our feature releases. If you're not aware, we do feature releases every quarter. And what I mean by feature releases are net new features that we add to the product. Since this is a cloud service and it needs, an uptake cycle. Let's say if you're doing the February release like we've done last month, then the release happens in 2 cycles. The first cycle is where we would patch your dev and test instances, and the second cycle is where we will patch your production instances. Now, there is a 15-day gap between these two, and the 15-day gap is essentially there so that you can do testing of the new features and whether it breaks any functionality that you have built. Let's look at what we introduced in the February release. Okay, so these are the product focus areas for us from an OIC perspective. Developer productivity. So we want integration to be friendly in terms of how quickly you can set it up and start running it. We give you pre-built connectivity, adapters, recipes, accelerators. We focus on operations, reliability, and scalability so that you are able to manage and monitor OIC instances better. And last but not the least, one of our focus areas is also real-time visibility. What this enables you to do is provide interesting information via dashboards to your business stakeholders. Now, with that in mind, let's see what exact updates have we done. So from a developer productivity perspective, our focus area has been process automation. This is the workflow engine, which is part of OIC. So there are updates that we have done, which makes it have seamless integration with Oracle Visual Builder. So that is the Jet CCA upgrade, the custom component upgrade using the Jet framework, which means that when you're building the UI for process using Visual Builder, through the task details snippet, you are now able to see the full task history of the process owners or reviewers. So when you are building a UI using Visual Builder, it is much richer now that you can assemble together. We've also provided a feature for you to decide a default view of the process history. You can choose between list view, tree view, and graphical view. And this default, once you apply, is available for all processes in the workspace. The third is the total task count. So within my tasks page, the default view now reflects the total task count for user as well as in the shared filters. Let's look at, from a Visual Builder perspective, what we've done for developer productivity. So first of all, Oracle Jet, which is what we use as part of the core offering, has been updated to 11.1.x. So that's the near real net new release of Jet that's available. We've also updated the Visual Builder with Redwood template. So what you see here is a screenshot of the Redwood template, and you will see that it's pretty different than the earlier Fusion view. And this is the view that you will see consistently across all Oracle products. So now when you're building your applications, you can utilize and leverage the same Redwood templates in your application. We also have support for fragments. So fragments is essentially an encapsulation of a section of page which has the HTML, JSON, and JavaScript together so that you can share it across the pages in a much easier fashion. And there are enhancements in the dynamic layout of the Visual Builder UI screens. So from a connectivity perspective, there is a net new adapter. The adapter is for Magento Commerce Cloud. It's a very successful and often used commerce engine that's available for deployment. We've also done the enhancements for our existing hospitality and SAP adapter. Let's now look at some specific areas of the Magento Commerce Cloud. So what I've done here is I've taken some screenshots so that you get an idea that while it's a net new adapter, from the perspective of integration developer, the experience remains very similar. So here is the connection screen for Magento Commerce Cloud. And you provide the host name, which is your application or your endpoint at Magento. And then you provide the security policy, which is consisting of the consumer key, consumer secret, access token, and access token secret. This is what you will get from the Magento Commerce Cloud. Now, what we've done is we've created a very simple demo just to sort of give you an idea of how simple it is with this particular adapter to integrate with Magento. In this particular case, we are retrieving customer information from Magento given a particular customer ID. And the next screen shows you the test view of this particular integration flow. So we've got the customer ID here, which is 257. This is from the sample application that's already deployed on Magento Commerce Cloud. And on the bottom of the screen, you can see the various bits of information that's been retrieved for this particular customer. So with that, I want to hand it over back to you, Jürgen.
Thank you, Jürgen. So basically here, what I'm going to show you is a demo story about how we can enable AI service ticket classification using Oracle, something that we call Oracle Intelligent Automation Engine on top of B2C service customer portal questions. So what do I mean with Oracle Intelligent Automation Engine? Basically, we're going to have, and we're going to see how a customer is going to create a question or submit a question in Oracle B2C service customer portal. Oracle B2C service is our customer service ticketing SaaS application. So a customer is going to put a question, and then we're going to run what I call Intelligent Automation Engine. That is basically OIC and a flow that is going to put those questions in OCI streaming in a topic. And then we're going to have like a consumer integration that is going to capture those real-time incidents coming from B2C, because every time a customer creates a question in B2C portal, and B2C is going to create an incident for it. And then once we receive that event, we're going to consume that event using the Oracle Integration OCI streaming adapter. And we're going to apply some, let's say, intelligent APIs on top of this question. Overall sentiment analysis over the question using OCI AI sentence level sentiment analysis service to set, let's say, the ticket sentiment score. And then we are going to call two APIs, the aspect-based sentiment analysis, or APSA sentiment analysis API that we have in OCI AI language to set and classify give more information to the service agent to be able to, let's say, fix or amend the automated classification that OIC is doing together with OCI language. But also we are applying name entity recognition service, we're going to call that API too, in order to set the category and the queue where this incident or question should be routed to. Okay. So what I'm saying is, what we're going to see is customer question. That customer question is going to go to OCI streaming, and then that's the first integration. And the second integration is going to consume that event. It's going to apply and call the different Oracle AI language, aspect-based, sentence, sentiment analysis, and entity recognition APIs. And then we're going to update the incident with the AI service ticket classification. Okay. So let me share my screen. Jürgen, can you see my screen?
Yes.
The Oracle integration screen. Okay. So basically what I'm going to do, this is the Oracle B2C portal. So I'm going to ask a question here. So let's say someone wants to ask for, I don't know, wrong amount charged to my credit card. And basically the question is, hi, the price of the kettle I bought was supposed to be 12,000, but you charged me more to my account. Please help me on this. So once the customer submits the question, what we're going to see is in the background, we should see some, let's say, tickets coming to OCI streaming. So this first integration is basically doing this. So just to show you what is happening in the background. So the integration is just capturing the incident and sending to OCI streaming. And then we have another integration, and that is this one. The consumer, yeah, this one. The consumer integration flow that is basically let's wait a second. Basically, what it's doing is getting the event from like the question. We need to let's say get the subject or the specific question that the customer submits, and then we're gonna call the detect overall sentiment using the sentiment analysis at the sentence level sentiment analysis API. Then we're gonna call the aspect-based sentiment analysis, and we are gonna call the name entity recognition API. So that's basically the flows that you are seeing here. Like this one is for detection of the entities. This one is for aspect-based, and the other one this is for the sentence level sentiment analysis. So basically, what we are seeing here, and just to show you that this is not fake, you know, this was the question and the incident that was created because of the from the question from the customer. So it's this one. So this is the one that we have here, and what we're going to see here in Oracle Service Cloud in the service agent desk is like, okay, the wrong amount, right? Wrong amount charged to my credit card. The customer, hi, the price of the kettle I bought was supposed to be 12,000, but you charged me more to my account. Please help me on this. So if you see these first two fields, the overall sentiment emotion and the overall sentiment analysis score, is basically what we get applying the sentence level sentiment analysis API on top of the question from the customer. So obviously, even if the customer says like, you know, like, I mean, he's annoyed because of the price, because they charge him more. So the score is around minus 78. That is basically the score that the sentiment analysis API gives it. And you can see like the top aspects that influence in that score. Obviously, let's say kettle is one of the negative aspects, but specifically this one is the one that has more, you know, a score higher than the kettle that is charged. So basically, as this is it seems it's an order and a billing let's say incident. So automatically we are classifying this in the category of billing and with the category and in the queue of order. Okay. If we try another one, another question. So in this case, we're going to see how, let's say, how the sentiment analysis works when we have something like this. My laptop keeps crashing, and in this case, the customer is saying, "Hi, I just bought a brand new laptop, but it keeps crashing. I love the color, but this is not good." This is the kind of, let's say, emotion that the sentiment analysis should score as mixed. You know, there are positive and negative sentiments, but what we do in the background is, okay, give me what's the higher percentage of or which specific emotion has the higher score. In this case, it should be negative. So again, I posted a question. We are this question with this ticket. So we are capturing the event, and then we apply the sentiment analysis. So we should see a new incident with the laptop keeps crashing subject. And in this case, if you see, it's the question like, "Hi, I just bought a brand new laptop, but it keeps crashing. I love the color, but this is not good." So you see, obviously, it's not that negative, but it's negative in the end. But you have, based on the aspect-based sentiment analysis API, it gives it identifies two main aspects: laptop and color. Laptop has a negative score, of course, but color has a positive score. But in the end, the overall score of the sentence level API gives an overall sentiment emotion like negative, right? So minus 28 means, yeah, this is an incident, obviously. And if you see as we classify this as a negative incident, how negative it is, and based on the aspect and the key aspect here, that is laptop, we should see, okay, this should go to the product queue, and it should be categorized as ordering and returns and refunds. So basically, what we have seen is how we can use Oracle Integration Cloud together with OCI streaming and OCI AI language aspect-based and sentence sentiment analysis APIs together with name entity recognition APIs in order to be able to apply this kind of cool and let's say intelligence logic on top of Oracle B2C service. Just to give you like an explanation of how we are doing like the categorization or the classification of this. Basically, what we need to know is based on the entities that we're gonna that the entity name recognition API gives us. Based on that, we can say, okay, if this overall score is negative and a name entity recognition is identifying like a product or a product together with a date, so if or a product together with money, right? So if we have these kind of combinations of entities, it means that's something related with billing. If it's a cardinal date, is related to the order. If it's only product, is related with returns and refunds aspects. And then we have another lookup here in Oracle Integration that finally does the categorization. So we know that for contracts, for a sentiment aspect or negative aspect or positive aspect or contracts, the queue should be like, in this case, the corresponding queue in B2C service, as well as the category. So all these IDs are basically like the values or the different categories or queues we have here in Oracle Service Cloud. So yeah, guys, that was what I wanna show here in the demo. And you can run this Oracle Integration Cloud AI and OCI streaming services on top of your Oracle B2C Service Cloud, or even a non-Oracle service ticketing SaaS application. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Juan Carlos. Amazing demo to see how Oracle integration empowers machine learning. With that, we would like to hand over to the A-team for some best practice.
All right, great. Thank Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you are. My name is Abhay Kumar. I'm from A-Team. I'm joined with my colleague, Bala Mahalingam. Bala, you want to say hi?
Hey, everybody.
So together we are going to cover the best practices and design patterns to integrate with Oracle CX. Before even we begin, this is a third-part series, in my opinion, what we are trying to cover here. The first two parts have covered the best practices to integrate and extend ERP and SEM, and there was one more series which covered the best practice to integrate and extend HCM, human capital management. I highly encourage all of you, if you are in a multi-pillar project or if you had different applications other than CX, to take a look at those presentations which are available on the public website to see how you can integrate those applications. But having said that, today's session will be on the best practices and design patterns to integrate with Oracle CX. A little bit our team, Oracle A-Team, we are a customer-facing, highly technical team under Oracle product development. We are comprised of enterprise architects, solution specialists, software engineers, and we very closely work with customers and partners, providing guidance, troubleshooting, and best practices. And there is a link to our blog site. If you already don't know, I highly encourage you to go visit that site. So the agenda for today's meeting is we'll cover a high-level reference architecture to provide an overview of connectivity capabilities of CX and integration. Next, we'll talk about some inbound patterns, inbound integrating into CX. Next, we'll talk about outbound patterns, how to get data out of CX. The next aspect will be the anti-patterns, what we have seen on the field, how some partners or customers have implemented, and generally based on our experiences, what we have seen on the field. And lastly, we'll provide a very high-level guidelines on the best practices to integrate with CX. With that said, the Oracle application landscape, it's a very complex landscape, right? You have multiple applications. It's not a single application which runs everything. So if you have to classify it, you have broad pillars of enterprise resource planning, supply chain management, human capital management, advertising and customer experience, industry application, and ISV and customer application. So the reason why we wanted to call this out here is it's not a one-size-fits-all when you talk about integration. Oracle, like any other company, has grown organically and through acquisition. So there are, when we talk about different pillars like ERP or SEM or even customer experience, there are a bunch of applications which make this suite. And the way you integrate this with this applications can be different. There could be little nuances. So to demystify the CX landscape, I'll hand it over to Bala to demystify the CX landscape. Bala?
Yeah, as Abhay was saying, Oracle Fusion Application Suite has several pillars, and today we are going to focus on the CX. And in CX, we have different applications, right? Purpose-built applications for sales, service. Within service, we can have a B2B service or B2C, and marketing, we have B2B and B2C. So there are differences between integrating these applications like Fusion and some of the non-Fusion applications in CX. It's very important to understand, the applications that we are implementing and their capabilities. That is very, very critical. We have seen multiple times where, there are some out-of-the-box features, but the customers are not leveraging it, right? Integration scenarios will differ from different applications and different implementations and use cases. Because they are different platforms also, right? So there are a lot of pre-built functionalities, even within Fusion application pillars. There are like APIs and customization, different options, and authorization capabilities are different. So you have to basically understand that nuances and then plan your integrations. So on the next slide, we have integration. Good.
So the typical use case and capabilities of CX, right? The typical use case is, why do you need integration, right? So you may have scenarios wherein you have Oracle suite of applications that will integrate with non-Oracle applications. For example, you may have sales on CRM, which is like Salesforce, right? But then you could have marketing or customer data management on Oracle, or like HR or expenses on Oracle. So you'll probably have needs to integrate these applications. The other use of typical use cases are extracting transformation loading from source applications. This would involve like initial data load from if you are migrating from on-prem to cloud. The other typical use cases are capturing, transforming, and updating the data within and across applications. So you will find needs and it all goes back to the previous slide because it's a heterogeneous application suite where there are multiple applications within the CX suite itself. So if you wanted to integrate between different CX applications, we have pre-built integrations. But also sometimes, if the use cases are different, you might want to build integrations ground up, and that's one of the use cases where you'll be looking for integration use cases here. And other use case needs are high performance need and connectivity with diverse systems. Oracle integration capabilities are pre-built integrations. We'll talk about this in a little bit in the further slides. We have also the capabilities include integration cloud adapters. And Oracle Integration Cloud also gives end-to-end automation. The Process Cloud was talked about a little while ago by Ravi. And also the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure gives some native tools. If there are some things over and beyond the application suite and the integration suite, and if you wanted to do something outside it, you have the whole plethora of suite of applications or technologies and tools, what the OCI, what we call as Oracle Cloud Infrastructure offers. Bala?
So Oracle Cloud Fusion applications, right? So in this session, we are focusing on CX, Fusion Cloud. There are different components that are available within the Fusion application CX where the customers or the partners can use those for inbound connectivity and outbound connectivity. For example, you have import and export management. You have export management is available only for the CX objects. And then we have SOAP and REST. Application Composer, if you are familiar with the Oracle Fusion CX sales or B2B service, Application Composer is one of the major component or tool set that we will use to configure and extend the applications. And we have workflows and events that we could use as well. So there are two types of connectivity, right? So the inbound connectivity, you can use import management and REST or SOAP to bring the data into Fusion CX. And outbound connectivity gives an way to extract or export data out of Fusion. And we have different options that we have listed. Export management. And then you have Application Composer where you can kind of enable or script a custom real-time, and events and publications where you can actually use OIC to listening into the business events in the real-time. BICC and BIP, if you are going to use, you can use it for batch purpose. Okay.
So next we're going to talk about the capabilities. Now we talked about the application capabilities. There's a Fusion CX application suite capabilities. Now we also have to talk about the integration cloud capabilities. So because the integration cloud is the gelling layer between the CX and whatever applications you want to integrate to. So Oracle Integration Cloud provides pre-built integration. So especially in the CX space, there are way too many pre-built integrations. If you actually delve into the ERP SCM space, there are not that many pre-built integrations at this current point in time. But we are working towards it. But the CX landscape looks pretty good in the pre-built application space. So essentially, if you were to start a project and think about CX integration, the first thing what you would think about is, hey, whether I have a pre-built integration or not, right? And if you have pre-built integrations, we highly encourage that you do the pre-built integration first. The second thing is the cloud adapter. So just like I said, the CX landscape has many applications which have been developed organically and through acquisition. So we have native cloud adapters to connect to it. Like for example, you have Sales Cloud Adapter, which connects to Oracle CX Sales. You have like Responses or Eloqua adapters. You also have Oracle Field Service Cloud Adapter. So you have a bunch of adapters which natively connect to the CX application suite, right? And again, it's not a single adapter because the application are different or heterogeneous. So that's why you need multiple adapters. The third one is a REST and SOAP adapter. So, if you go to any third-party integrations tool, the only things what they provide is the REST and SOAP to connect. And CX, obviously, the capabilities we talked about, it does have REST and SOAP. But the cloud adapters are definitely the distinguishing factor of OIC versus, the other integration products which is out there in the market, because not everybody has the cloud adapters like what we do. And these cloud adapters have been built and developed based, working with the application team. The fourth one is a file server, and most of the batch use cases you will need like FTP server to be used, and Oracle Integration Cloud comes up with a natively inbuilt file server where you can host files and consume files within OIC and outside OIC. The fifth point is a Fusion application events, and this is again one of the distinguishing factors of OIC versus the competition is the Fusion application events can only be consumed by OIC today, and not by any other products. But CX has a different capability of App Composer where you can create custom events that could be consumed not only by OIC but other products. We are going to talk about that, but the native Fusion application events can only be consumed by OIC, and that's the distinguishing feature of OIC versus others. And then you have business process management. If you want to model end-to-end processing, which spans different applications, you have monitoring and Visual Builder. Visual Builder is heavily used for extension capabilities when you have when your CX suite is not providing you the functionality what you need, you can obviously extend on your CX suite building your own forms and your own UI and with VBCS and integrating that with the CX application suite, either using Oracle integration or other native tools like OIC or direct integration. We'll talk about some of those patterns in further on the slide.
So Oracle integration. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Paras. Yes.
So the integration cloud pre-built CX integrations, you can find them in Cloud Marketplace. Cloud Marketplace has 2,000 plus pre-built integrations from Oracle partners and others. So the one that is shown in this slide is all kind of mostly built by Oracle. We have a standard pre-built applications where you can connect B2B service with field service or CPQ or Eloqua Commerce Cloud out of the box, right? So you have the framework connectivity, everything comes and it is all maintainable and then upgradable, but you can always refer to the latest documentation where you can see thousands of pre-built integrations and frameworks available. So next reference architecture, Abhay will.
And we wanted to really call out that whenever you have pre-built integrations, once again, right, your first choice should be the pre-built integrations, because that will obviously reduce a lot of effort on your part, and also the pre-built integration takes care of many of the internal Oracle application integration. So your best choice would be the pre-builts first. Only if you have super customizations, that is when you will probably move to having more customized integrations. The other thing you could also do is take a pre-built integration as a base and extend it. But unfortunately, what happens is once you extend it, you would own those pre-built integrations. So we are going to talk about the reference architecture for Oracle integration. This is pretty much like putting together the capabilities of CX and the Oracle Integration Cloud and everything in a single picture so you understand how this all works. So on the right-hand side, you obviously have Oracle Fusion CX and with all its capabilities of import management, APIs, BIP, BICC events, and App Composer. And this is the Fusion CX suite. In the middle, obviously, you have the Oracle Integration Cloud, and we talked about all these features of the capabilities. There is one conspicuous thing, which is a PassDB, right? And you may ask, why do I need a PassDB? I mean, generally what we have found is, you probably don't need a PassDB in most of the use cases. You can directly go from, an external third-party application using Oracle OIC into Oracle CX, or, many a times, you may also go directly from, external third-party apps into Oracle CX because of the, you may directly connect to the REST or SOAP endpoints. But in some use cases, there is some merits to have some past DB. Like, for example, if you wanted to have a customized business logic in the middle, and if you want to persist data in the middle, and then, for error handling capabilities, that is where, many of the system integrators or architectures out with the customers have considered using PassDB. So as a reference architecture, this is not, it is quite common to use PassDB if you had like customized logic within the middle. So on the left-hand side, obviously, you can connect to any cloud-based app. It could be Oracle-based apps or third-party apps, third-party applications. And if you have like on-prem applications, it could be our own old e-business suite or anything else. It could be our homegrown Java apps. You can connect using OIC agent, which will run on your data center or wherever the application is running, and then through a pull kind basis, not a push, but pull. So you don't have to open any kind of firewalls, kind of integrate with Oracle Integration Cloud, which in turn will go and integrate with the CX. That's how it. And we also talked about extensions and file servers. File servers is basically used for batch-based integration, file-based integration, and extensions are using VBCS. Bala?
So let us start with inbound patterns, right? So we are going to talk about the options that you have for bringing in data from multiple sources. And this is one of the critical tasks during every implementation. And one thing that is very, very important is data definition and mapping from the sources to Oracle Sales Cloud. That will be the basis of the data migration or the inbound, right? So there are two things on the inbound. One is you are going to bring in data from other sources, from legacy or other Oracle or non-Oracle cloud applications. And the second thing is, hey, what am I going to do for ongoing, right? For ongoing, I can either do a batch or a real time. So in Fusion CX, we have a component or capability available, which is import management. It's very, very, very performant, and there are tens of millions of records that customers I have helped on migrating. So you could use that import, or you will be using the import management to bring in data, and especially during the implementation, the one time for sure. Yeah. For the extract and transform is depending upon the customer's use case and customer's availability of tools. That is very, very important, where you are transforming the data from your sources that is going to be loaded into Fusion CX via import management.
So the next of integration is the real-time synchronization. So the real-time synchronization involves, using REST APIs or the SOAP web services. Although REST is becoming, well, it is a de facto standard. We started with SOAP, but then we have totally moved on to REST, and eventually in the distant future, SOAP may be non-existent. So if you are planning on using APIs, I would highly recommend using the REST APIs, which are exposed by CX. Now, the real-time synchronization leverages REST APIs for integration, and obviously, you can use the native adapters, what we mentioned, the CX adapters, or you could use the REST adapter on OCI or OIC to connect to these REST APIs. One of the common anti-patterns, and we are going to talk about this, what we have seen customers do is for an initial data load or for batch use cases, let's say you're getting thousands of customers, they try to loop through those customers or accounts within OIC and then use REST APIs to call. We highly recommend not to use those patterns because that is an anti-pattern, because wherever you have batch scenarios wherein you are exceeding a couple of tens of records coming in from a source system, the standard should be you have to go with import management. So the real-time synchronization should truly be like, more like, UI-based interactions, so that, you don't, you're following the right pattern.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to add into that is that, the inbound pattern, import management, is for Fusion CX, But if you really look at Eloqua or Right Now or Field Service, you will have a very similar capabilities within that tool to import or data load. So you would be leveraging that, like you would avoid leveraging the object APIs, for example, account API to create hundreds of records in an integration, and definitely not through synchronous for sure, right? So that is one of the anti-patterns that you will see, but I just wanted to bring it up here in this conversation. On the next one, you have this is mostly for the CX, Sales Cloud, or B2B or CDM, the import management, right? Use that for a one-time and potentially ongoing batch integrations if you are going to have hundreds of records or thousands of records or even millions of records on a daily batch for ongoing. And then use the REST APIs and web services for real-time integrations. And this whole import management process can be automated using the REST APIs that can call the import management processes. So you can leverage that if you really want to do an end-to-end automation. But I would strongly recommend do not overdo on automation for initial data migration, because you will have potential data issues that business users need to resolve, and then it's going to have a lot of effort to automate that. But for ongoing, definitely you should plan to automate so that you don't want any manual intervention. There is a good detailed data migration best practices that is available as a reference, and then you can actually get it from support, and that would give a lot of details around it.
So the key takeaways for the real-time patterns are, the real-time integrations can be implemented synchronously or asynchronously. We are going to talk about one anti-pattern wherein it clearly distinguishes where you have to implement it synchronously and asynchronously. And to that point, there is a second point. Whenever you're thinking about synchronous response, you have to, keep in mind the user experience while designing synchronous interactions in general. And that is one of the common pitfalls what we have seen on the field, that people do not think about user interactions. And they design synchronous flows that take like not few seconds, but even tens of seconds or to even a couple of minutes. So that's a huge anti-pattern. And we are going to talk about a real example which was implemented with one of the customers as an anti-pattern and how it was solved. There are two flavors, obviously, SOAP and REST. We highly recommend using REST. REST APIs are growing in number. There is something called batch action on REST APIs. REST APIs are, is a common platform. Hopefully, that is actually very homogeneous across the entire Fusion suite. When I say Fusion suite, it's both CX, ERP, HCM, and HCM. So there are few things like batch actions that could be used to process multiple records at one shot. So a lot of times we see people writing for loops within OIC and invoking the APIs again and again, whereas you could do a single API call using batch action and then pretty much publish like 100 records into CX. And then the other thing is the pagination is also a feature of the Fusion REST API framework, which we highly recommend you to use, especially for queries, because sometimes sometimes your payloads are huge, and then the payloads which are returned back into OIC are huge, and then you kind of process that, which will generally have performance degradation. So rather than that, you could have pagination. So you are, only limited number of pages are returned from the CX when you query, and then you can again go back to the next set of pages and retrieve the data and process in your OIC.
Yeah, so we have covered the inbound patterns so far. Just to summarize, you have import management for CX Cloud, B2B and B2B service and CDM for bringing in data. And then either you can use it for a batch mode. And then for real time, you have APIs that you could use, and we talked about it. Now let us go into the outbound patterns, right? So in outbound patterns on Fusion CX, that is, we want to get out the data out of Fusion CX. There are like different options. So like import management, we have export management, which will kind of help you in getting the data out of CX sales or B2B service or CDM. for all the objects that you have import is export enabled, right? So then BICC is another option where you can actually do a bulk data extract. If you have a need for getting data to data warehouse or ODS, then this is the best option. And if you are implementing multiple Fusion pillars, also this may be an useful option. But the recommendation will be use export management as much as you can for CX objects. And then if you could not get out using the export objects, you can actually try BICC. Then you can application composer. This is mostly for real time as we are talking. You can enable the events, and that events can be captured. That could be given out to OIC or others in a real-time mode. Then the last option we have here is the OIC, which is the only option that you have if you want to capture the events in Fusion applications across all pillars. That is the only option we have. And typically you use that for real-time integrations for outbound. Okay. So the guidelines here is that as we talk, if it is a large data volume, right, tens of millions or hundreds of millions of records, BICC is probably the recommended approach. And you could use export management, and export management has an option called the EDLC, which will help you to get the data and split the files and then provide you with that capability. Then from the ease of use and the performance and incremental export, right? Incremental export is one of the critical requirements, especially if you are taking the data to warehouse or data warehouse or ODS, or even to other consuming applications. And then by default, out of the box functionality, BICC has a capability for incremental export and job scheduling. So you can actually use that. If you want to capture the change data capture for child or related child objects, the export management is the only option that you could use. BICC doesn't have that functionality.
If there was a single slide for you to take away as a cheat sheet, this would be the slide, because this will cover all aspects of the scenarios, what you would have, and then the typical kind of use cases, the format, and the suggested volume. So, Bala, you want to take over?
Yeah, so as we talked about, right, so in outbound options, you have a different options. If you really look into application composer and OIC, you are really talking about low volume and mostly for the real-time integrations. But export management is the best option for exporting data out of CX, and BICC another. It is across all pillars in Fusion. BICC is the option that you should consider. Regarding BIP and OTBI, we are seeing a lot of customers using BIP for extracting data, which actually it is not a recommended or best practice approach. So you should avoid using BIP for data extract or even synchronous integrations.
And many a times, just to add a note on the application composer, if you wanted high performance, sometimes you may not have orchestration needs within the middle. You are free to use application composer and directly integrate with your application, totally bypassing OIC. So that's really a valid point-to-point pattern, which we encourage you to do if you have no orchestration needs. That's the third option here. So with that said, let's discuss some real-life anti-pattern. So here we have, I'm sorry that this entire OIC flow is kind of blurred out because, just wanted to show how big this flow was. And in fact, this is just like the 3/4 of the flow, and then it actually goes on here. And this, I don't want to name the customer, but took this from a customer example. So they want to do an account synchronization, right? And the account synchronization not only involves accounts, but account sites, site contacts, contact details, and much more. So what they ended up doing was, okay, they wanted to do an account synchronization, but they designed a synchronous flow. So if you don't know whether, you can see it's a synchronous based REST trigger, which will wait for the response. But there are a couple of problems here, right? It's a very chatty synchronous flow wherein it's not only looping through the CX REST APIs for accounts, account site contacts, and contact details, but also they have, remember the PassDB, what I talked about? They are using that reference architecture pattern, so they have a lot of interactions with the PassDB. So literally, this is an anti-pattern. We don't recommend such an approach for a synchronous scenario at all. So how would you fix it? You would probably make the entry point here as asynchronous, and then somehow try to do a query-based status check or kind of return a response from CX and update the calling applications asynchronously. So the next anti-pattern, what we have seen is, let's say, from CPQ to OM, large orders anti-pattern. So CPQ, as you know, is a part of CX Suite, not a CX Fusion, but it's a part of CX Suite. So when you have a large code, few hundreds lines of codes, this customer sent these codes into OIC and then was invoking a synchronous API on order management to create order within OM. And guess what? It used to take a long time in OM, and OIC would time out. OIC has a timeout of 300 seconds for any kind of asynchronous interaction. And then they were wondering what used to happen. The transaction used to continue to run in OM, but then it used to time out in OIC. So the way we fixed it was, you made this flow entirely asynchronous. So there was a user interaction here. So the user used to get back a response after like a couple of minutes. And this is where, we pointed out earlier, whenever you are designing, you have to be design conscious with the user experience. I mean, how long would you wait on an Amazon order to be complete? I mean, would you wait for 2 minutes? No, probably not. Even if it takes like, probably more than 5 seconds, you would not visit that site again. So that's the, user experience you have to take. And this was redesigned based more on asynchronous, where a user submits the code and then goes back to a different page to see the status of that code, whether that was turned into an order. This is a similar pattern with Eloqua to CDM, wherein you had daily customer data, and then it was using more synchronous, and then this was changed over to an import-export management on the Sales Cloud. So in the interest of time, we'll move on to best practices. So for REST APIs, we have already discussed use REST over SOAP. For REST APIs, you can do the limit of response payload by using fields. So you can define some of the fields parameters. So you don't have to, get all the response in the payload, only limit the number of fields. You can combine multiple APIs into a single request whenever possible. You can, when many fields are needed in the response, you can do an expand and then give the parameters of the child objects. And then you can also, I was talking about batch action, where you have like multiple records going into Fusion APIs, then you can use the batch action on the REST calls. On the response side, as REST has standards. There is a lot of links which are returned, so you can disable the links by saying that it's only data as true. With data migration, do not use OIC, just use plain old import export. Security, by invoking the REST API, use JOT tokens to do the security. And large response payloads, think about pagination. Some of these things we have already covered. So this would be the last slide for the best practices. The identity best practice for security would be like, when you're thinking about multiple identity providers. For example, Fusion comes with its own identity provider, but then you want to federate that with, let's say, if a customer has Ping identity, or let's say Azure ID or something like that. So you have to think about the federation approach as a best practice, and you can federate any IDPs, including IDCS, to our SaaS. Real-time versus batch, think if it's a batch in, it's a batch out. Sync versus async, we discussed some of the anti-patterns there. Error handling, make sure that it's a first-class citizen. Think about error handling when you're designing. Use pre-built integrations whenever available. We touched upon this, so pre-built integration is the first choice. Middleware DB, we already covered where the middleware DB is necessary. Leverage OCI native. A lot of times, if you have like high processing which is needed, OIC may not be the best fit. You may offload it to a microservice-based architecture. So you can call a microservice from OIC and then leverage that high amount of processing on OCI native. And for file exchanges, you can use FTP server and avoid replication. You fetch data dynamically as needed. And these are some references. And I know we are out of time, but happy to take any questions.
Abhay and Bala, that was impressive. Thank you very much for the nice presentation. Let me wrap up the call and then we go to Q&A. So for more information about Oracle integration, please visit the website, oracle.com/integration. We also have all the videos from today and the webcast you mentioned on ERP, CX, and HCM integration available at Oracle Video Hub. We will post the presentation from today also there and make use of the documentation. The A-team writes a wonderful blog with a lot of best practice articles, so it's definitely worth to visit ateam-oracle.com, and you can also visit the blogs from the integration team. For the latest updates and upcoming events, webcasts, and best practices, please subscribe to our integration newsletter, and please nominate your successful project for the Oracle Excellent Award. With that, we would like to come to the Q&A, and I would like to say thanks to Ravi for answering many of the questions.
I think one of the frequent questions that has been asked is related to between OIC process and Visual Builder. So there were questions about external UI, whether external UI can be used with process, and that's definitely a yes. We essentially have example with Visual Builder, but people have built UI in other technologies as well. One person asked whether SOA middleware is going to be replaced with OIC. Well, we don't have such intentions. SOA is continuing to be enhanced. But then, yes, most of the innovations that you see, especially in the cloud world, is all happening in OIC. And then there were questions about, I think there was question specifically about RBAC. A lot of questions actually in terms of whether we are looking at access control of the integrations that are built, of the integrations that are running, etc. So yes, role-based access control mechanism is under implementation. That's something that we are working on. There was another frequent question which was related to whether we will be supporting more authentication schemes with connectivity agent. So yes, again, OAuth is under implementation there. And then I'm seeing if there's something that's interesting.
That's a very nice summary. Thank you very much, Rafi.
Yeah, welcome.
So there was one question for Juan Carlos. Your demo was so impressive. So the audience would like to know what about the pricing of the machine learning capability of Oracle Cloud Platform.
Yeah, I answered it. You can find like the pricing in the link I posted. But anyway, it's basically for the first 5,000 transactions or API calls to the OCI language. In this case, that was the one that I had in my demo. Those are free. The first 5,000 API calls. After the 5,000, Oracle is gonna charge the customer $0.25 every 1,000 transactions, and that's it.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Abhi and Bala, any questions you would like to read out for the benefit of the audience?
So one of the a couple of folks asked about the availability of REST API, and some of them are available only in SOAP. If you find any of that mismatches, right, or need for a REST API, I would suggest creating a Cloud Customer Connect idea to help the PMs to prioritize, and our goal is to provide all the REST APIs.
I think the there was some question on, the timeouts, whether they are configurable on OIC. They are not configurable on OIC. It's set at 300 seconds. But I think that's the reason why, we were kind of recommending that, while designing, you have to be, conscious enough, not to really, make sure that, somebody who is waiting for a response doesn't wait for 300 seconds.
Great. So thank you for attending today's session. That was an amazing session with a very nice live demo, great product updates, and a lot of questions answered from Ravi. Thank you for that. And thanks for the wonderful best practice from the A-team. Once again, the A-team did now a whole series, HCM, CX, and ERP best practice on integration. Make use of it, watch the video on Oracle Video Hub, and read the A-team blog. I would like to say thanks to our speakers and everybody for attending. Feel free to reach out to the speaker team via social media, and we are looking forward to see you on the next webcast, July 26 and April 20 for the Customer Success Series. And please complete the feedback form once you leave the meeting. Thank you very much for attending.